Rafael Caro Quintero was recently arrested after being long listed as one of America's most wanted men, and his arrest concluded a chapter in the Mexican drug world. What makes Rafael Caro Quintero so uniquely wanted? Well, he simply was among the pioneers of the now disintegrated Guadalajara cartel, working right alongside Angel Felix Gallardo. The FBI listed a number of crimes he'd done, including violent crimes in aid of racketeering, conspiracy to commit violent crimes in aid of racketeering, conspiracy to kidnap a federal agent, kidnapping of a federal agent, and most unique of all, felony murder of a federal agent. Rafael Caro Quintero co-founded the Guadalajara cartel, one of Latin America's most powerful drug trafficking organizations during the 1980s, which also remains active today. He worked alongside Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo and Pedro Aviles Perez by shipping large quantities of marijuana to the United States from Mexico. He was responsible for the kidnapping of United States DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena, Camarena's pilot Alfredo Zavala Avila, the American writer John Clay Walker, and dentistry student Alberto Radalat in 1985. After the murders, Caro Quintero fled to Costa Rica but was later arrested and extradited back to Mexico, where he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for murder. Following his arrest, a number of incidents shook the Guadalajara cartel and caused its disintegration, where the leaders broke off to incorporate the Tijuana cartel, Sinaloa cartel, and Juarez cartel. Caro Quintero was freed from jail on August 9, 2013, after a state court concluded that he had been tried improperly. However, amid pressure from the United States government to re-arrest him, a Mexican federal court issued an arrest warrant against Caro Quintero on August 14th. Caro Quintero was wanted for his involvement in drug trafficking as well as the 1985 murders. He was at large as a wanted fugitive in Mexico, the United States, and several other countries. The United States offered a $20 million reward for information leading to his capture, the highest value among fugitives currently listed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. Caro Quintero lost his final appeal to avoid extradition to the United States on March 27, 2021, and was arrested in Mexico on July 15, 2022. When he was a teenager, Caro Quintero allegedly started to grow marijuana on a small scale at the ranch owned by his brother Jorge Luis. In less than 5 years, Caro Quintero managed to buy several other ranches in the surrounding areas and began to amass larger amounts of money and influence. He's said to have first worked for the drug traffickers Pedro Aviles Perez and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo before forming the Guadalajara cartel with Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, Juan Jose Esparragoza Moreno, and others in the late 1970s. He has been cited as a pioneer of the drug trade in Mexico and has been described as one of the preeminent drug traffickers of his generation. His involvement in the murder of the DEA agent came after Mexican authorities raided his 2,500-acre ranch, where they reportedly burned more than 10,000 tons of marijuana, making the drug kingpin lose approximately $160 million. Kiki Camarena at the time was working undercover in Mexico and was touted to be responsible for leading the authorities to the ranch. This allegedly prompted Caro Quintero and other high-ranking members of the Guadalajara cartel to seek revenge against the DEA and Camarena. In retribution, Camarena and his pilot were kidnapped in Guadalajara on February 7, 1985, taken to a residence owned by Quintero, located in the western section of the city, brutally tortured and murdered. On April 4, 1985, Caro Quintero was first arrested in Alajuela, Costa Rica, while sleeping in a mansion just 800 meters from Juan Santa Maria International Airport, and extradited to Mexico on charges of involvement in Camarena's murder, and was sentenced to 40 years for the murder and other crimes. Caro Quintero was first imprisoned at the Federal Social Readaptation Center No. 1, Maximum Security Prison, Almoloya de Juarez, State of Mexico. Even though Caro Quintero was to face a maximum of 199 years in prison, Mexican law during that time did not allow for inmates to serve more than 40. In 2007, he was transferred to another maximum security prison known as Puente Grande in the state of Jalisco. In 2010, a federal judge granted him the right to be transferred to another prison in Jalisco. Caro Quintero's Guadalajara cartel fell apart in the early 1990s, and its remaining leaders went on to establish their own drug trafficking organizations. In Tijuana, a large family formed the Tijuana cartel. In Chihuahua, a group controlled by Amada Carrillo Fuentes formed the Juarez cartel. and the remaining faction moved to Sinaloa and formed the Sinaloa cartel under the traffickers Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Ismael El Mayo Zambada. Caro Quintero's brother Miguel Caro Quintero succeeded him and formed the Sonora cartel, which branched out of the Sinaloa organization. The United States government believes that Caro Quintero ran his criminal empire behind bars through at least 6 of his family members by creating a front that laundered millions of dollars through a gas station, construction company, shoe factory, restaurant, real estate development companies, among others. Mexico's Navy captured the drug lord Rafael Caro Quintero for the second time in a law enforcement coup that came at a heavy cost when a helicopter used in the mission crashed, killing 14 military personnel. Marines flushed out Caro Quintero with bloodhounds in a far-flung corner of the northwestern state of Sinaloa, one of Mexico's drug trafficking heartlands, before the Black Hawk chopper came down as it was about to land further south. The US government hailed the arrest and said it would waste no time in requesting his extradition. The White House senior Latin American advisor Juan Gonzalez admitted that it was a huge milestone. The arrest came after pressure from the United States, according to a Mexican official, and the same week that President Andrés Manuel López Obrador met with US President Joe Biden in Washington. Caro Quintero had spent 28 years in prison for the brutal murder and torture of former US DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena, known as one of the most notorious killings in Mexico's bloody narco wars. The events, dramatized in the 2018 Netflix series Narcos Mexico, led to a nadir in US-Mexico cooperation in a 5-decade war on drugs. Caro Quintero has previously denied involvement in the killing of Camarena and was released in 2013 on a technicality by a Mexican judge who claimed the evidence levied against him was not completely clear. The release of Caro Quintero outraged the administration of the US President Barack Obama. The United States Department of Justice said they were extremely disappointed with the drug lord's release and stated that they were going to pursue Caro Quintero for pending charges in the United States. The Association of Former Federal Narcotics Agents expressed their disappointment too, but stated that Caro Quintero's release was a result of the corruption that besets Mexico's judicial system. Mexico's Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram also expressed his concern vis-a-vis the case, stating that he was worried about Caro Quintero's release and that he would investigate whether additional charges were pending in Mexico. After his release, Caro Quintero quickly went underground and returned to trafficking as part of the Sinaloa cartel, according to US officials, who put him on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list with an amount that is a breaker for any drug lord. In 2021, he lost a final appeal against extradition in the United States, and he could be extradited as quickly as possible. Mike Vigil, the DEA's former chief of international operations, said, "It's probably one of the most important captures of the last decade in terms of importance to the DEA." And the US Attorney General Merrick Garland said he would seek Caro Quintero's immediate extradition. Garland said in a statement, "There is no hiding place for anyone who kidnaps, tortures, and murders American law enforcement. We are deeply grateful to Mexican authorities for their capture and arrest of Rafael Caro Quintero." According to Mexican prosecutors, Caro Quintero will be held in Altiplano prison in the state of Mexico before extradition, a penitentiary known to be the most notorious place from which his old Sinaloa cartel associate Joaquin El Chapo Guzman escaped in 2015. While the 69-year-old Caro Quintero is no longer considered a major player in international drug trafficking, the symbolic impact of his capture is significant. A Mexican security expert weighed in on the arrest, agreeing that it points to significant cooperation between the United States and Mexico despite recent clashes over security. He said, "This type of capture is unthinkable without the participation of the DEA." Mexico's unwillingness to extradite Caro Quintero to the United States before his release from prison had been a source of tension between the two countries. A US official said Washington was very eager to have him extradited. There are high hopes that this arrest could initiate the repair of a frayed relationship between the United States and Mexico in terms of combating drug trafficking. This is the notorious life of Rafael Caro Quintero. Like and share the video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications for more juicy stories.